Here in Romans 1, God is telling us that we are all born knowing who he is. We all know that he's our creator. We all know that we are accountable to him as our righteous judge. We know this because when God created us, he created us in his own image. God created within us the knowledge of the eternal power and of his divine nature. And God says that no matter what our argument might be, none of us have a viable excuse. Car with a tuba floor and then crawl underneath it. No, that is a man's job. We men sometimes do stupid things, don't we? I'm going to put on a parachute that was packed by Elmer Nobody, and then I'm going to get in an airplane. I'm going to go a mile up into the air, and I'm going to jump out and hope that it works. It'll be fun. No, it will be stupid. I'm going to see how fast I can drive my car down a crooked, bumpy back road, and it'll be great. No, it will be stupid. Well, let's go out and see how drunk we can get. It'll be a ride. No, it will be stupid. In Matthew 4, Satan took Jesus up to the highest point on the temple, and he said to Jesus, I dare you to jump. God will take care of you. But Jesus responded with the word of God, and he said, it is also written, do not put your Lord God to the test. Listen to me, men. You're now a husband and a father. There are people depending on you and watching you as their example, and God has a great plan for your life. Why do you dare tempt God by flirting with death just for a fleeting high? Sometimes we're just stupid on purpose. Ladies, have you ever looked at your husband or your boyfriend and wondered, is he really that stupid? Well, sometimes he is. But you see, some guys have learned that the best way of getting out of a job that he doesn't want to do is to be willingly ignorant. Maybe you've heard this from your man. Well, I don't know how to run the washing machine. I don't know how to fold clothes. I can't figure the checkbook. I don't know how to iron. You know what I'm talking about. Now, there is some truth to it. There is some truth to it. True story. Several years ago, when my wife was gone, I was going to be a good husband. So I loaded the dishwasher with all of the dishes that I had made dirty that day. I'll give you some time to catch up. I loaded the dishwasher, and then I grabbed the Dawn dish soap off of the kitchen sink, and I filled the soap holder, closed the door, and turned that puppy on. Don't get ahead of me. Guys, if you want to get out of running the dishwasher, I have a surefire method. Just put liquid dishwashing soap in the soap dispenser, close the door, and turn that puppy on. My sister-in-law was visiting that day, and she and I were sitting in the living room talking for a while, and eventually she got up to leave, and as she passed through the kitchen, I heard her exclaim, "Oh my, Jim." I went out of the kitchen. There was a 2-foot deep souffle on the kitchen floor. I'm not making this up. I had to scoop it up with the snow shovel. I was putting it in the sink. I was putting it in the bathtub. I was throwing it out the back door. But I'll have to admit, the kitchen floor looked magnificent. Kids come running in their sock feet. They hit that floor, boom, hit the floor and shoot right out the back door. Now, the first time I did it, I ain't making that up either. The first time I did it, I was innocent. I thought dish soap was dish soap, right? If it ain't dish soap, don't put that on the bottle. But the second time I did it, I had no valid excuse. But I'm no longer allowed to operate the dishwasher. Now, guys are proficient at being stupid, but ladies aren't exempt. I know a man whose wife never wanted to mow the lawn. But he kept pressuring her. He said, man, I mow it all the time. You need to do it. So one day she reluctantly got on the mower and she mowed the lawn. She mowed the entire lawn. She laid down perfect lines, nice crisscross pattern, burned up an entire tank of gas, never turned on the blades. Willingly ignorant. Sometimes we are stupid on purpose. We know the facts. We know the danger. We know what we should do and what we shouldn't do, but we ignore what we innately know. We are willingly ignorant. The Bible teaches that there are 2 major facts that man is willingly ignorant of, and our perception of those facts affects every facet of our life. In 2 Peter 3, verses 5 to 7, it says this. It said, but they deliberately overlooked the fact that long ago by God's word the heaven existed and the earth was formed out of water and by water, through which the world of that time perished in the flood. And by that same word, The present heavens and the earth are reserved for fire, kept for the day of judgment and destruction of ungodly men. Peter says that men are willingly ignorant when it comes to the creation of this world, and they're willingly ignorant when it comes to the judgment of the Genesis flood. I heard somebody say the other day, you are entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. To be willingly ignorant means that there is evidential proof, but the facts are intentionally being ignored. So let's go back to the original text in Romans 1. The wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all the godlessness and wickedness of people who suppress the truth by their wickedness. Since what may be known about God is plain to them because God has made it plain to them. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from that which has been made, so that people are without excuse. This is God speaking, and God doesn't lie. Here in Romans 1, God is telling us that we are all born knowing who he is. We all know that he's our creator, and we all know that we are accountable to him as our righteous judge. We know this because when God created us, he created us in his own image. God created within us the knowledge of the eternal power and of his divine nature, and God says that no matter what our argument might be, none of us have a viable excuse. You can say that you don't believe in God, but you're denying what you know in your heart to be true. You can enter a debate about God and creation in the Bible, but you are deliberately ignoring God's creation around you and the facts that reveal that God is who he says he is. You can claim to be an atheist, deny the creation, refuse to admit that one day all men and women will bow before Jesus and acknowledge him as the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. But you know that you're defending a lie because God said so, and God doesn't lie, and all are without excuse. There are also consequences. To deny these truths provokes the anger of God. To suppress the truth because we prefer our sin over our Creator is to set ourselves up to become the recipient of God's wrath. Now, when I was young, the preachers preached sermons on hellfire and brimstone. Anybody here remember those kind of sermons? Scared you to death to be in church, didn't it? We knew that sin was wrong and that hell was hot and eternity was forever. But we don't hear too much about the wrath of God these days. We hear that God is love. And he is. We hear that God is gracious, and he is. We hear that God is merciful. God is merciful. We hear that God is God of blessing and a God of joy, but God is also a God of great wrath. And you don't have the complete picture of who God is if you refuse to include his wrath in your perception and definition of God. It is the wrath of God that shows us just how merciful he is. It is the contrast of God's wrath to God's love that teaches us just how loving he is. So you can't exclude God's wrath from your perception of who God is, or you won't have the complete picture. So here in Romans 1, we're informed that we have the surefire way to incur God's wrath is to deny the known facts and to suppress the truth that God has revealed to all of us through his creation. Both at the beginning and the end of the book of Revelation, God says, I'm the Alpha and the Omega. Alpha is the first letter of the Greek alphabet, and Omega is the last letter. In Revelation 1:8, God says, I am the Alpha and Omega. He says, the Lord God, who is and was and who is to come, the Almighty. And at the end of the Bible in Revelation 22:13, God repeats, I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end. The divine creation proves that God is the beginning. Our Creator God is the starting point. He is the genesis of all that we have known and all that we will ever know. The flood proves that our Creator God is also our judge, telling us plainly that everything that God created still answers to him and will ultimately give account to him. All things begin with God. Genesis 1:1, as well as the Gospel of John, say, in the beginning was God. When the beginning had its beginning, God was already here. Before anything ever had its start, God already was. Everything began with God. Everything that we know, everything that we have discovered, and everything that has not yet come to light started with God. He is the Alpha, the beginning, the catalyst, and he is the primary source of all things. The Bible also teaches that all things will end with God. God is not only the Alpha, but he's also the Omega. He isn't just the beginning, but he's also the ending. When this world comes to an end and the cycle of time finishes its course, God will be there. When you finish the ride of life, the one that took your ticket to get on board will also be standing at the gate when you leave. And as his creation, you will give account to him for your performance while you were here. Since the fall of man in Eden, even unto today, there are no theological truths that are more purposely opposed than these. Atheists and scientists and philosophers have spent billions of dollars and countless man hours trying to prove that God didn't do what he said he did. But their proofs aren't based upon the factual evidence that they have observed from God's creation. But they're based upon the opinions and assumptions, or as they like to call them, theories. You've heard of the Big Bang Theory and the theory of evolution and the gap theory, all of which are nothing more than opinions or scientific guesses, as we were taught in our high school science class. But what is being perpetrated as factual scientific truth in reality has nothing to do with facts, science, or truth. True science is based upon factual evidence that is derived from observation. But a theory, as we were taught in grade school, is an educated guess. Pythagoras was the first to use the word theory. In his definition, a theory is a contemplative and rational type of abstract or generalized thinking, or the results of that type of thinking. But the definition of a theory as it first appeared in ancient Greek language has been changed. It has been altered so it can now be presented as fact. Even according to Webster's dictionary, the word theory has taken on new shades of meaning. These theories are nothing more than assumptions, often described in science textbooks by the words probably, we think, or some scientists believe. Maybe they should just say once upon a time. When asked to prove creation, all we have to do is observe what is around us. But when asked to prove evolution, the scientist says, I need more time. When asked how much time he needs to prove his theory, he responds, I need billions and billions of years. So if you eat right and take care of yourself and exercise, maybe be around in a billion years or so to see if they were right. Even though there's irrefutable evidence of creation in the Genesis flood, man has purposely chosen to ignore the facts and to propagate a lie that begins with the phrase, billions of years ago. In Deuteronomy chapter 6, God issued a warning. He said, beware lest you forget the Lord, which brought you forth out of the land of Egypt and from the house of bondage. God said, be careful that you don't forget. Constantly remind yourself of where you've come from and where you are now and where you will be going in the future. And never forget the one that created you and made it all possible. But man always tends to forget. And in the verse just prior to that, God explains the cause for that forgetfulness. He says, when you have a land of your own and great and good cities, when you have houses full of good things and wells and vineyards and olive trees, when you've eaten and you're full, beware lest you forget. Everybody needs God when going gets tough. When there's a disaster, everybody needs God. When there's a hurricane or an earthquake, everybody needs God. When there's sickness or death, everybody needs God. When there's senseless slaughter of human life, everybody needs God. It's easy to talk to a poor man about God. It's easy to talk to a dying man about God. It's easy to talk to a sick man or a hungry man about God. But when things are going well, when you're not facing a trial, when your life is going well, we get amnesia and we say, God who? You would think that when a man is most blessed, he would be the most grateful to God. But the unregenerated heart intentionally rejects God for the lust of the eye, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life. And in doing so, the wrath of God is unleashed upon that individual or upon that nation. This is where we are now in America. We have purposely and intentionally forgotten God. We've pushed the knowledge of God, our Creator, from our mind, and we are willingly ignorant. We are stupid on purpose. We've pushed God out of our homes. We've pushed Him out of our schools. We've pushed Him out of our government. Church, we're about to witness the wrath of God. We've gone as far as we can go. We've denied our Creator. We've rejected our Savior, and we've embraced sin. And the wrath of God will soon be revealed against our godlessness. Cosmology is the science of the origin and development of the universe. Cosmology is important. It's crucial to our existence, to our future. Because what we believe about creation is the basis for all of the other things that we will believe in this life. What you believe about creation will affect what you believe about God. What you believe about creation will affect what you believe about sin. It'll affect your perception of marriage and your perception of family. What you believe about the creation of this world will even affect how you work or how you spend your money and how you plan your future. That's why Satan's first attack is upon the very first words of the very first sentence in the Bible. In the beginning, God created. How many of you here believe that God created the heavens and the earth? I don't mean some form of creation. I don't mean that God was sitting there when it happened or that God started evolution on its way and then set back for billions of years. But I mean, do you wholeheartedly believe Genesis 1:1, word for word? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. There's evidential proof of divine creation all around us. The facts that are easily visible to all of us point to our Creator God speaking everything that we know into existence. But the facts also declares divine judgment with the flood, but many have chosen to ignore the facts and to be stupid on purpose. Everybody seems to have an excuse, but I've learned that an excuse is nothing more than the thin skin of reason stuffed full of baloney. How many of you here today eat baloney? Bunch of forgetful baloney eating people we got here. I grew up on baloney, as you can tell. We used to call it Melrose round steak. It didn't come in these little slice packages like you have at the store now, but we would just go to the grocer and we'd say, give me a chunk. We didn't get it by the pound, we got it by the inch. How much you want? Give me that much. And then we would take it home. And my mom would take out the grinder, and she would hook it onto the end of the countertop. And then she'd chunk up that bologna and she'd grind it up. And then she'd put pickles through there and she'd put onions through there. And I don't know what all Mom put in there. And she would make ground bologna. Now, I know these days they call it ham salad, but I want you to know there wasn't a ham within 5 miles of there. It was ground bologna. I love bologna. But I didn't know what bologna was made of till I was a teenager. You have any idea what they put in bologna? Try to look it up. All of the sources that are real sketchy when it comes to the ingredients in bologna. They will tell you this much. They'll tell you that bologna is usually pork, sometimes beef, sometimes both, maybe even chicken or turkey. Now you're thinking prime cuts, right? Wrong. They use what they affectionately call trimmings, which comes from parts of the animal that make people want to faint. There are a lot of parts, you see all beef bologna, there are a lot of parts to cow, and you won't find any of them in the meat case. But you will find them in bologna, okay? But the word bologna has come to have another meaning in English. It's used to describe something that's false, wrong, or just plain foolish. As a pastor, I hear a lot of excuses for not serving the Lord. Some people say, well, I don't go to church because of so-and-so. But I want you to know that's nothing more than a thick slice of bologna. I'm not a Christian because of that person, just a thick slice of bologna. The excuse that you give for not serving God is nothing more than the thin skin of reason stuffed full of bologna because God says you are without excuse. You already know. If you're not serving God today, it's not the pastor's fault. It's not some church member's fault. It's not your mom or daddy's fault. But if you're not serving God today because you have chosen to push God out of your mind and you are without excuse. God said so. The Bible says in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The very first book, the very first chapter, the very first words of the Bible speak of divine creation. But today, what was once clear truth has become a great mystery. Mysteries have a tendency to make our mind wander. Our mind wanders because in a mystery, we're missing a very valuable piece of the puzzle that would enable us to understand what the mystery is all about. So we seek to find a clue that will help us solve the mystery, and our mind begins to wander, and it wanders in many different directions. I'm older now, so I watch weird channels on TV. History Channel, I'm old, I forgot. National Geographic Channel, and then they got this one channel where they got these guys talking about UFOs. You ever see this? And they call us nuts. I mean, these guys are talking about, we have these pyramids that had to be built by aliens. Yep, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, they had, because people back then couldn't have been as smart as people are now. Truth of the matter is, they were probably more as intelligent than we are. We have a lot more at our disposal, but they were probably a lot more. You know how I know? Because they built the pyramids, and we still can't figure out how they did it. When we hear the evolutionists say the words billions of years ago, our mind begins to wonder. And in our wondering, we arrive at 4 vital questions. Who am I? Where did I come from? Why am I here? And where will I go when I die? Now, there are only two ways to answer these questions. There are only two answers, and they're polar opposites. We can either answer these questions from a biblical perspective, or we can answer them from a non-biblical perspective. Sir Arthur Keith, who wrote the foreword to the 1959 version of Darwin's Origin of Species, said, "The conclusion I've come to is this: the law of Christ is incompatible with the law of evolution. The two laws are at war with each other." That was 1959. The bottom line is, God either is or he is not. If God is, then he is who he says he is. But if God is not, then who do we believe? For many people, this has become a mystery, but the key to solving the mystery is the evidence that we use to view the mystery. We either see it through the eyes of God by his word, or we see it through the eyes of a depraved man by their word. Many of the problems that we have in our world today are the result of our perception of creation and the flood. One author said, "It's no wonder our children are like animals, because that's what we tell them they are. We tell them that they came from a monkey and that they were born with certain animal instincts for which they didn't ask and they cannot control. When asked, 'Who am I?' the evolutionist says, 'You're nothing important.' When asked, did I come from?" the evolutionist says, "You were an accident." When asked, "Why am I here?" the evolutionist says, "You're here for no particular reason." When asked, "Where am I going when I die?" the evolutionist says, "You'll just deteriorate into the dirt and be recycled." So what is our motivation for life if this is what we believe? Adolf Hitler had been quoted to say, "If you tell a lie long enough, loud enough, and often enough, people will believe it." And people are more apt to believe a big lie than a small one. Satan's success has come from sheer repetition of a big lie that's been told long, loud, and often. And to get us to swallow this lie, he has mixed together two things that have absolutely nothing in common. To undermine the creation of Genesis 1, Satan has mixed together science and evolution. There's nothing scientific about the theory of evolution. Many of the science books being used in our public schools state that Earth is 4.5 billion years old. And since the Earth has come into being, it has changed and evolved. But I want to ask you this question. Do scientists know this, or do they just choose to believe it? It's not against the law to teach creation science in the classroom. It was, however, against the law to teach evolution until the early 1960s. So what has changed? Was new evidence discovered that disproved the Bible and affirmed evolution? If we're going to teach science, then let's teach science. Science isn't evil. Science isn't some corrupt approach of sinful men to discredit God. As a matter of fact, I believe that God is a great fan of science because I believe that God is the ultimate scientist because God created the laws of science. The first law of thermodynamics, the law of conservative matter, says matter cannot be created or destroyed. That's a scientific law. Well, this begs the question, if matter can't be created or destroyed, how then did our world get here? Well, there are only two choices. It was either created by God or it made itself. Modern science has given us the Big Bang Theory. The Big Bang Theory states that 80 to 20 billion years ago, all of the matter in the universe was concentrated into a very dense, very hot region that might have been smaller than a period. And for some known unreason, the region exploded, and bang, the result was the formation of galaxies and planets and stars and everything else. And then they go on to say, it'll happen again someday when all matter and energy will once again be packed into a small area the size of a period, because it happens every 80 to 100 billion years. Forget global warming, it's global squishing we need to worry about. Scientific American magazine states this. They say the observable universe could have evolved from an infinitesimal region. It is tempting to go on and speculate that the entire universe evolved from literally nothing. I am not making this up. The universe evolved from literally nothing. Where did this pulpit come from? Was it created or did it evolve from nothing? That's not science, that's science fiction. Now let me get this straight. They say that in the beginning there was nothing, and then suddenly nothing exploded. And the universe was born. The Big Bang Theory states that matter, or dirt, came together and pressed so tightly upon itself that it began to spin until it exploded in, ta-da, here we are. But I have a couple of questions. Where did matter come from? Where did the gravity come from that brought it together? Where did the energy come from that made it spin? Do you remember riding a merry-go-round as a child? There were 4 phases that playgrounds today have changed much. We had monkey bars that we climbed on, and then to make them nicer, they paved underneath them. There were merry-go-rounds when I was a kid, and there were 4 phases that we'd pass through on a merry-go-round. I know this because I wasn't the bully on the playground. I was the nerd. The first phase, when you get on the merry-go-round, was to scream to go faster because you thought it was fun. And then you entered phase 2, which was silence when you realized that it wasn't as fun as you thought. And then phase 3, when you begin to scream to stop because you feared that you might die, which brings you to phase 4, flying off of the merry-go-round when you could actually die. That brings us to another law of science. That's science. The law of conservation of angular momentum, the law of entropy. The scientific law states that when an object is spinning, the speed of the spin increases from the inside to the outside. You ever play crack the whip? The law states that when an object on the outside flies off, in turn, it will spin in the same direction. The problem is, in our own solar system, the planets, Venus and Uranus, as well as maybe Pluto, are spinning backwards. Some of the moons around the planets are spinning backwards and even traveling backwards around the planet. So how could they do all that by themselves? The second law of thermodynamics states everything tends towards disorder. Now, this is an easy law to see. Go home today and look at your kid's bedroom. Look in your garage. Everything tends toward disorder. Hebrews chapter 1, verses 10 and 11 says, "And you, Lord, in the beginning laid the foundation of the earth, and the heavens are the work of your hands. They will perish, but you remain, and they will grow old like a garment." If everything tends towards disorder, that means that it must have began in order, correct? But our school science books teach our children that things began disorderly and they're becoming into order. But the very facts of science prove just the opposite. Society is falling apart. The planet is falling apart. Everything that God set in order at the beginning of time is tending toward disorder. The laws of science disprove evolution and prove that God is who he says he is. But Pastor, don't most people believe in evolution? It is true that the majority of scientists believe or at least support the theory of evolution. But you have to remember this. It wasn't long ago that scientists believed that the earth was the center of the universe. It wasn't long ago that the scientists believed that a big rock would fall faster than a small rock. It was only in the 1850s that scientists and doctors believed that if you were sick, you had bad blood, and to cure you, they had to bleed that bad blood out of you. Just because the majority believes something doesn't mean that it's true. But the bottom line is this. When God created you, he created in you the knowledge of who he is. And then he surrounded you with observable evidence as proof so that you are now without excuse. So I want you to look deep into your heart today. God is there. And he's calling to you. You in a still, small voice, he's saying, "Here I am." Can you feel his presence? Can you hear his voice? If so, don't push him away, but listen closely. Do what he's telling you to do. And remember,